Welcome back, everybody. If you're new, my name's Nicholas, and this is Investing Against the Grain. We got a little bit of a different format today for all of you. We have a special interview with a electrical engineer who's also a intellectual property attorney, so an attorney for patents, essentially. And today we're just gonna have an interview with them, a conversation with them. They are also a very big Tesla investor. They love Tesla, so it's gonna be very Tesla based, this conversation. We're gonna take a look at a specific Tesla patent. Heads up, I am iterating on my interview process, so I accidentally did not leave our faces in during one of the screen shares where we're looking at a patent based off of a Tesla laser. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. But we're iterating on our process, so the next one will be better, and we're definitely working on it because we have exciting news. I have a individual who's going to be coming on for an interview in the coming weeks. I'm very excited, so stay tuned for that. Pretty excited to get to know this individual and just have a candid conversation with them. But with that said, I want to give a shout out to some very special new Patreon members. Shout out to Panda618. Shout out to Vanilla Wafer. What an awesome name. John Zenner, thank you so much for your contribution. And last but not least, Norm Store. Thank you all so much for contributing. It definitely helps the channel grow. And if you want to help and join our Patreon, feel free to click on the link down below in the description. Also, we also have some merchandise down there if you want to take a look at that. But with that said, let's get into this interview. Don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, and let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have a privilege, honor. We have Mr. Greg Proctor. He is a electrical engineer who is also a intellectual property attorney who's going to be on here with us. We're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about Tesla. We're going to talk about patents, how they work, how they might apply to Tesla, the do's and don'ts, and what they mean in the bigger scheme of things. We're also going to talk a little bit about Greg and just get an idea of who he is, because this will not be the last time he comes on here. He's a subject matter expert in many fields. Like I said, he has a background in electrical engineering, so lots of knowledge there. But with that said, Greg, welcome. Thanks for hopping on and giving us some time.
Thank you for having me. Hey, everybody.
Before we kick this off, I gave you a little intro there, glowing you up a little bit there. I've known you for a while, but why don't you, in your own words, maybe talk about a little bit about your background, who you are, and your expertise, both from an electrical engineering side and maybe more notably as an intellectual property attorney, litigator, et cetera.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm a patent attorney. I've been a patent attorney for like 7 years. I first did patent prosecution, where you draft patents and you help the inventor actually get a patent. And then now, more recently, for the last 5 years, I've done patent litigation. So that's where companies are suing each other over patent rights. So before that, I went to electrical engineering school. I knew I didn't want to be a real engineer, so I went to law school. But while I was there, it's actually funny enough, I worked on a solar car, which is basically an electric car, a precursor to Tesla.
Yeah, that's funny. Before we hopped on this call, Greg actually texted me saying Facebook had just reminded him that it's been how many years? X amount of
10
years
years.
and 10 years, a decade since he did that project. And I guess that was probably what, your capstone?
It was a senior design project. It was this like just rickety solar car that would take like 3 days to charge. So we just charge it up, with a battery and then use it as an electric car. It was really fun.
Yeah. So talk about irony. I mean, the fact that we're doing this today to talk about Tesla and patents, and sure enough, that pops up. That's you can't make that stuff up.
Serendipitous.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So with regards to what you do, what's the litigation? That means that you are the ones that go after companies who are infringing on patents, or I guess using somebody else's technology or their idea, even if it doesn't maybe exist in real life yet, and they're essentially doing something that they're not supposed to. Is that right? Is that a good understanding?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we always represent the plaintiffs, which is usually the smaller company, against the defendants, is usually the bigger company that's using the plaintiff's technology. And typically what happens, and I think you'll probably see this in the electric vehicle field as well, when the industry moves in a direction, we do a lot of cybersecurity technology. So if anybody knows what sandboxing is, that's where you take a virus and you let it detonate inside a secure environment. That's a sandbox. That happens all the time now. But the first company to invent that, they got a patent on that, or several patents on that. And then 10, 15 years later, the entire industry moves in that direction. And because they were the first mover and they got the patents on it, now they can technically sue everybody that's now moving in that direction because they got there first and got the patent rights first. It's the same thing with like smartphones, right? Did all these smartphone companies, copy Apple's smartphone? That's debatable, but the entire industry moved in that direction. So that's just what happens.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So often I meet myself, other YouTubers, a lot of people, and I mean, I'm sure even yourself, when you think of the electric vehicle revolution that's happening, we tend to tie things back to the smartphone era, and we try to use that as maybe a roadmap of what happened to the legacy companies, the OEMs, right? I think Motorola, or not Samsung, Motorola, Nokia, BlackBerry, equate them to GM, Ford, Volkswagen. But with regards to what you just said there, with Apple, it seemed like it seems like every single every smartphone looks like an iPhone now. So what happened there? Did Apple just decide not to like sue people and pursue patents based on the aesthetic or technology, or did those patents run out? I mean, how should we think about all that?
Yeah, so there were fights over those patents. So you have utility patents which protect the functional aspects of an invention, and then you also have design patents which protect kind of the look and feel of something. So when you're talking about the typical iPhone, it's got a totally glass face with rounded or curved beveled edges, like that would probably with maybe a button in the middle for the old iPhones, iPhone 4 through whatever it was until the 10, it was all had a button in the middle. So like that type of stuff would be protected by design patent. And Samsung and Apple had a lot of fights over those design patents. So it does happen, but there's also, when an industry is moving in a direction, sometimes there's limited possibilities, right? With the smartphone, what's the alternative to having an all glass face with a button somewhere on the face or no button? And the only alternative is maybe what Samsung did, is they put the button on the back, which is kind of an inferior design, but that's maybe what they had to do.
Yeah, so essentially there were fights regardless about this. It's just which way does it go? So is there normally like a statute of limitation on these patents? Like, so for Apple, I mean, what was it, 05, 06 when the iPhone came out? So how long would those patents be good for? Because I know like in the medicine space, right? I think it's 20 years, and then a medication they can make, or other companies can make generic versions of that medication. Is that ubiquitous across all patents, or is that a healthcare pharma isolation?
It's ubiquitous across all patents. That's in the statute, in the patent code. Every patent has a lifespan of 20 years from the filing date. So, in some industries like pharmaceuticals, the most important time is those last few years because it takes so long for development, FDA approval, adoption. That might take 15 of the 20 years to get through that period. Whereas software, typically the software is most valuable in the first few years. And then after that, it's really not that. The software itself is not that valuable. After 15 years, it's way obsolete.
Gotcha. So how long do these normally last? I mean, because now I'm going to tie this back to Tesla in a second here, because I'll just do it now. So with a Tesla patent I was looking at a little bit ago, and we can talk about it in a second. It looks like they applied for the patent in 2018. So right now we're in 2022. So I mean, halfway through 2022, essentially. So call that, what, almost 5 years ago. So
Yep.
does the patent take hold for protection on the day it was filed, or does it start once the patent is granted?
The day that it's issued. So the day that it's granted. And then
Okay.
you have 20 years of protection from the filing date. So that filing date might be 2 years before the date that the patent issues or is granted.
Oh, okay. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. So so the protection starts on the day it's accepted, but the length of time includes however long it takes for the U.S. Patent Office to say, "Hey, this is approved."
Yeah, that's right.
Ah, okay, all right. So that kind of goes back to why a lot of these pharmaceutical medications kind of come out of patent, if it's all ubiquitous, come out of patent after 5 years, for example, instead of the whole length.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I guess that's a good thing. Yeah. So before we get into like some of the patents, Tesla patents, I sent you before we hopped on this. I sent you a blog post that Elon Musk wrote back in 2014 with regards to patents and his idea behind them. And I'm sure many of the people who are viewing have read this, but essentially, I think the essence of what he was trying to say was that he thought for a long time that patents were good and that they held value for many reasons. But it almost seems like he got a little jaded or cynical about the idea of patents, and that they became just some way for companies to sue other companies just to make money rather than protecting actual intellectual property. And then he also goes further to say that he thinks that it has the potential to stifle innovation, right? And that's where he goes on to say, as long as you use our patents in good faith, in a good way, you can use them. It's open to all of your patents. As a, especially as a litigator, somebody who goes after people who infringes on patents, reading that and from Elon's perspective back in, I mean, almost a decade ago, 2014, any thoughts about that? Any reaction to it? Do you agree, disagree? Is there some nuance he might be missing?
Yeah, and I think what it is, only 1 to 2% of patents are ever litigated or licensed to another party. So that means that 98% of patents are generally worthless. The patents that are really worthwhile are the patents that are granted to a company that's moving in a space that the entire industry is going to follow. And EV is certainly one of those, in my opinion, and probably most people listening to this channel. So what Elon said, I read that blog post you sent me. And the other thing that he said was, he learned that in his first company that he thought they weren't worthwhile. But then when he started Tesla, they filed a bunch of patents because they were afraid that GM and Ford and other companies that have these huge budgets would take their technology and steamroll them with their giant marketing campaigns and all their resources, all the engineers they have, all the manufacturing facilities, all that. And he said that didn't happen. He said, and it's maybe just happening today, right? So he wrote that in 2014, this 2022, so 8 years ago. Companies haven't decided to go all EV until maybe recently. So if those companies had done that, if they did say, oh shoot, Tesla's got this right, the whole market's gonna go to EV, let's take their technology, let's use our resources, and let's steamroll those guys, they probably could have done it in that time period and bankrupt Tesla. That could have happened. And if that had happened, those Tesla patents would have been Tesla's only defense to save their company.
Mm.
And so they would have been
Yeah.
really valuable for Tesla at that time.
Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. So Tesla was doing almost as or Elon saw it as a protection, but it's like like you're in the middle of a race and you know that you're the underdog in the race, and the race starts, and then you're in the lead and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to be in the lead for long. And then you just decide to do what you're not supposed to do in a race and look behind you, and you realize there's nobody there. And you're just a little confused because you thought everybody would be there. And it seems like I mean, it's very obvious that's what happened with Elon and Tesla. Man, they had a decade head start on everybody. And it just seemed crazy that once Tesla started producing vehicles in volume, especially with the Model S, right? The Roadster was more or less can this be done, right? I mean, I would even call it a prototype, like all of the Roadster, I call it prototype, but Model S was actual production, right? And like Elon always says, models or concepts are easy, but production's hard. So you would have thought that by then, GM, Ford, everybody would jump on the bandwagon, but sure enough, they didn't. So that's pretty funny. Let's stick with that theme real quick about Elon's post there. So I asked yesterday in my video if anybody had any questions, and this kind of goes along with what we're talking about right now. So somebody asked, there's a EV company called Nikola, which I'm assuming you've heard of. their CEO founder is arrested right now in the middle of trial, or trial has been postponed. Essentially, he fraudulently claimed certain things that their vehicles could do and couldn't do, and even faked a Nikola test semi going down a hill. If it was just rolling down the hill, apparently. Anyways, this subscriber asked if Nikola violated Tesla's free usage of patents by suing Tesla. So, in other words, they're saying by suing Tesla, you weren't in that good faith kind of clause that Elon had mentioned. Now, Elon's blog post was a blog post. I don't think that was any actual legal jargon that was in there. But I would assume that they probably have that in there. So we assume that there's a good faith clause in the ability to use their patents. This individual goes on to ask, or Richard goes on to ask, will Tesla be able to demand licensing fees from Nikola once one of their trucks is delivered and inspected? And so my question is, the big battle between Nikola and what they were suing Tesla about was the appearance, the aesthetic of how the Tesla Semi looked, right? Nikola was claiming that Tesla is copying the design of Tesla. So I think what he's getting out here is, and I would assume that would be a design patent, right? Or not a utility patent for something like that, and something which obviously you don't know what the stipulations are within Tesla, but just based on your assumptions on the information I gave you, how would you see that going down? Or do you think it'd be something that Tesla wouldn't even bother with? I mean, the company's already hurting their founders out. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Let's back it up to what Elon did in his post. That post links to a pledge on the Tesla website, and the pledge says, we pledge not to sue anybody that operates in good faith and uses our patents. And it's unclear, but I'm not an expert on contract law, but typically a contract requires two parties to exchange something of value. So by Tesla saying, hey, we promise not to sue anybody that uses our patents in good faith, they're not receiving any type of benefit from the other party for that. So they can't really be held to that promise as any type of breach of contract. So the way that they phrase it is as a pledge. So I'm not sure how the law treats pledges, but my guess would be that the law in a court, this pledge probably wouldn't be upheld. They would still be able to sue any party that used their patents. I don't know that for sure. That's just my kind of a guess based on my understanding of contract law. So, well, let me answer the guy's question, the viewer's question more specifically. So maybe not Rivian, what is it? What's the company called? I forgot. Nokia. Nikola.
Nokia.
Maybe if Nikola has some design patents, they could sue Tesla over them. I don't know if that would be a breach of this good faith stipulation in their pledge not to sue other companies that use their patents. But if it is, they could sue them. They could sue them on any technology that Tesla does have covered with patents. But I don't think it would be a good use of Tesla's time.
Yeah, I mean, to go after every single person on every single thing, every little, I mean, you have to have that risk reward, and it's got to be worth it too, right? I mean, a company that's already flailing, dying, what's the point, right? At that point, you're just being a bully, probably is how the public would perceive it. And even then, I mean, Elon and Tesla, at least in the States, they don't even reply to any FUD or anything that goes out there as it is. So I think at least for the state side of Elon and Tesla, it would be a little, I don't know, off what they normally do. It would be off brand.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about patents in general. What I'd like to do now, if you're okay with it, I want to share my screen, and I want to talk through some of these patents that we see, because the U.S. what is it? USPTO, Patent Trade Organization.
United States Patent and Trademark Office.
There we go. Hey, I'm not a lawyer here, but yeah. So let me just share my screen, and I'll get into my question. So I'm going to start off sharing one of the more interesting patents, in my opinion. So can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So this one is interesting, mainly because this is all about using pulse lasers to clean off debris that accumulate on the glass. So essentially on the windshield. I was reading through this. Very interesting. Let me actually zoom in, see if we can see this better. So here you can see what it was. But so I was looking through this, and I was hoping you could just kind of walk us through, what we should be looking at whenever we look at these, because you see people like Sawyer Merritt, he'll post about all these new patents that come out. But how should we understand these? Like, are they broken up into certain parts? What are they? And then I have some other questions as well.
Yeah, so let's look at the cover here. There's a lot of information on the cover that's, I think, relevant to your viewers. One of them is, so do you see that the item numbers on the left, like under United States, it says 19. So here's what you should know about a patent. So this is what we're looking at here is a patent application publication. It's not the actual patent. This patent application may have been granted and issued as a patent, but this isn't the patent. This is just the publication. It looks exactly like the patent. The only thing that may change after it becomes a patent is the claims at the end of the patent, which we can look at here in a minute. What your viewers would find interesting about the cover of a patent, and this is exactly what the cover of the patent will look like, or does look like if it's issued, is on the top right, you can see it says publication number, and that's the publication number of this patent application. So I said this previously, but I might got cut off. When you file a patent, it is not available to the public until I think 2 years or year and a half after it's the patent application has been filed. So after a year and a half, it automatically publishes, and this is what it looks like. So you can see this patent application was published on March 24th, 2022. That's right up there, a little bit above your cursor. And that
Mm-hmm.
should be a year and a half after it was filed. And you can see the filing date in the middle of the page on the left side.
Okay.
Filed September 2nd, 2021. So just because a patent was filed in September 2nd, 2021 here, that doesn't mean that's when this invention was conceived and maybe reduced to practice. So what you can see below the filing date is the related US application data. And that's any patents or patent applications that this patent is based off of. And by based off of, I mean it might have the exact same specification, which means you have the exact same scope of information inside of it, exact same inventors, everything could be a duplicate except for the claims at the end. And so for this one, you can see this patent is actually a divisional of another patent that was filed on May 10th, 2019, and is now patent number 11 dash or 11 comma 110 comma 896.
Okay.
And this divisional patent was actually first filed as a provisional patent on May 16th, 2018. That's right below where your cursor is, right where your cursor is.
Yeah.
So that means that whoever, so we can see on inventors, that's kind of in the top left, about a third of the way down, Mr. Dalal from San Jose, California, who invented this invention and would have invented all of these, this divisional application, the provisional application. It's all the same, generally the same subject matter. He would be the inventor on all of these. And that means that he first conceived this idea at least as early as May 16th, 2018. So while this patent was published just, a week ago or so, this invention, the actual conception of this invention, when the engineer at Tesla was saying, hey, I've got an invention, let's write this up, was at least as early as May 16th, 2018, and probably, a year or so earlier than that. And that's just a
Okay.
good kind of, mindset for people that are reviewing Tesla's patents to be like, they've known about this invention for at least, 3 to 4 years now.
Yeah, that helps a lot, especially when you think about, when Tesla comes out with something, or they come out with a new idea, or you find something new on their vehicles, or just a new process system, anything that they're doing. Sometimes we kind of take for granted, well, Tesla might have just thought about this 6 months ago, 9 months ago. But with these patents, it shows us, how soon Tesla was thinking about these things. Which, if you think Tesla's X amount of years ahead of the next competitor, you have to add in all that too, right? Because it took Tesla all those other years just to get to the point where it gets published before they even go ahead and apply it to the real world. So it's like, when you just think about that, it's like, whoa, that's kind of mind blowing, especially when we go into other topics like battery technology or whatnot. I mean, it really shows you the engineering prowess that Tesla has.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is a very interesting patent. And let me make sure I understand this correctly. So this is essentially just a high level kind of box diagram of how the idea of the tech would work. And so here the idea is, here's a piece of glass. It doesn't have to be a windshield. I was actually reading further on. It seemed like this first idea was conceptualized based off of solar panels. And the idea was solar panels get dirty and then they're less efficient. I mean, solar panels already aren't the most efficient. Um, don't have the most efficient use of transferring power, right? There's a lot of loss. I mean, 25% of recovery is excellent for a solar panel. But with regards to this, this could be applied to that. So I think a lot of these ideas came from Solar City, potentially the acquisition there. But anyways, the idea here, piece of glass, there's a debris, some beam optics assembly. So I assume this is where, or maybe this is all part of the laser itself. So laser emitter as well. IO interface, so IO input output. So I guess that's where received information of something's happening, or maybe not, because debris detection. Oh, this is the circuitry. Okay, so this is essentially how everything's connected. Control circuitry. Imagine this is to determine, can it penetrate through the glass, can it not, right? That sensitivity of it, and display. I have no idea what this is, but yeah, so it looks like this would all be housed into some kind of small form factor, which is this cleaning apparatus. What's the nature of a box diagram like this? I mean, and I guess my real question is, this is so high level looking at this. How detailed does Tesla, does anybody have to be with their patents with regards to how it works? Because this could be just a conceptual idea without me actually knowing how it could possibly work. But then here comes another company who actually does the hard work and figures out how to make that idea work. And you would think the person who did the hard part of making it work, the thing that people thought was impossible based on physics, right? How do you juxtapose those two?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you apply for a patent, you have to show conception and reduction to practice. So conception is a mental state. I have this idea for an invention and I want to get a patent for it. The next step is you have to reduce it to practice. There's two ways to reduce it to practice. One is to actually build the thing, which most people don't do at that stage. The other way to reduce it to practice is to describe it in a patent application to the level that your average engineer could build the device. So this patent, in every patent, only needs to be described to the level of detail that the patent office thinks an engineer of average skill could build the device based on what the engineer learns reading that patent application or the patent. So to answer your question, that is a tough concept in the patent world, which is, yeah, you don't need to get, there might be very tricky things about reducing this invention to practice by actually building the device that the engineer that's filing the patent application hasn't quite figured out yet, and the hard work is actually building it. And unfortunately, this is just the best system we've come up with, in the United States and in the world to figure out how to protect inventions.
That's definitely eye opening. I did not know that. I assumed, and I'm pretty wrong. Oh, let me zoom out here. Like, I mean, if you go through this, I mean, there's a lot of detail in here. And I read through all of this, but none of it really gives a very clear, specific way of how it works, right? I mean, it talks about what could and ideas, and it seems very, very high level, but it doesn't talk about, well, how do you prevent the laser from penetrating through the glass? Like, what's the mechanism of that? Or what are we actually using to see a debris on the glass. I mean, they talk about using some kind of camera, essentially, is what they talk about, but they don't talk about how, right? Like what's can determine that, right? And obviously there'd probably be some neural net transformer that they train up to be able to detect, hey, this is a debris on a glass. This is not a debris on the glass, right? So they don't talk about any of that. So I was uh, pretty surprised at how high level it actually remained.
Yeah, and I think it's important at this point, we should talk about what the claims of a patent mean. So at the bottom of every patent, you go down to the last page or the last two
Okay.
pages.
But before I scroll down there, just real quick. So
Sure.
so here's the idea for everybody. You can see up here, this is where the two laser beams would be, and you can see how they kind of cone out. That's the nice thing about light; it can grow essentially, can cone out. But the idea would be any debris on the windshield, and it's not just a windshield. You'll notice that the B pillar right here has a camera. I can zoom in. The B pillar, the camera. You can see another camera here. There's obviously a camera right here, so it would be also for the cameras with regards to full self driving. And if you look over here, you can see the whole solar panel or the solar panel installation here. So this is definitely something that they've had for a while. But I'll scroll down. You said to the very bottom.
Yeah, the last page or last two pages.
I think this is the last page.
Yeah, so these are the claims of the patent. So the first claim, claim one, is actually the page above it. So you see right at the end of the patent is a listing of claims. And the claims start with what is claimed is colon right there at the top, and you see claim one. Claim one, so the specification of a patent might be really broad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's actually claimed in the patent defines what the scope of your invention is. And that might be a lot more narrow than what the entire description that's in the patent describes. So when you're looking to see what a patent is actually protecting, the metes and bounds of what is protected is what's in the claim. And the claim is a verbal recitation of what either the method that's being protected is, or the apparatus, or composition of matter, etc. So for example, claim one here is a cleaning apparatus for a vehicle. And all that's protected by this patent, it's not everything that's in the body of the patent that's being protected. It is only what's in these claims.
Okay. So and all the descriptors that go with it, right?
Yeah, so picture these limitations of this claim one like the metes and bounds of a property line.
Okay.
What the only thing that will infringe this patent is a device that meets all the limitations, each and every limitation of claim one here, or a different claim, but I'm using claim one as an example. If it does all the limitations except for one limitation of the patent is not infringed. If it does all the limitations of the claim and additional features, it still infringes. So as long as the apparatus performs all the limitations of the claims, it's infringing this patent.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely helpful, especially with the the idea of. Well, let me actually stop sharing my screen here. Um, the idea of what would be worthwhile for Tesla to and not to prosecute other people. So something that is very notable to me. For anybody who remembers, back in 2019, Tesla held their autonomous day, and in that, somebody asked Elon, "What are you doing to protect your intellectual property, and what are you doing to make sure that other people don't steal it, not just infringe on it, right? From a patent perspective, but steal it." And Elon's response wasn't sue, wasn't have more patents, it wasn't have heightened cybersecurity, it wasn't anything like that. His answer was, well, the fastest way to, or the best way to protect your innovation is to continue innovating and to innovate faster than everybody else. So to me, I thought that was pretty powerful. I mean, that kind of again goes back to talking about the engineering first mentality of a company. Even though they have all these patents and they're obviously filing all these patents, but that's still the thought and that's still the message. It's not relying on protection from patents.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's also retention of talent. I think retention of talent is much more valuable than patents, generally speaking.
Yeah, so you live in Florida now. We're almost neighbors now. For those of you who don't know, I guess maybe we should talk about this before. Greg and I, we pretty much grew up together. We grew up on the east coast of Florida. We grew up in the Space Coast. For those of you who don't know, that's where Cape Canaveral is. I mean, our like if you had our phone numbers, they start off with 321, right? So 321 liftoff. But so we grew up with just essentially engineers of all types all around us 24/7. So it was only natural both of us would become engineers one way or another. But yeah, you lived in the Bay Area for a long time though. So talk about retaining talent, and obviously you saw people from all different companies, different software companies. What was your essence, whether it's friends or people you ran into, when it comes to engineers, as far as them bouncing from company to company? Was there anything that was it a mission that made people want to stay at a company? Was it just about pay? Was it about clout? I mean, what was there a sense of anything from when you were there?
I would say upward trajectory is the key driver for most people in that area, right? Everybody living there is type A and they want to advance and get high up in whatever company they're at. Some companies had more of a mission that you could feel in the Bay Area, and Tesla has definitely been one of those the entire time I was there. I moved there in 2015. So 2015, my roommate actually worked for Tesla. And yeah, you could kind of feel the mission even at that time. But other companies like Amazon or Google or some of these, large, mega cap, like been there forever companies, it's more about upward trajectory for the employees than it is any particular mission statement. I mean, Apple probably would be the only other example of employees would be there because of the reputation of Apple and the the coolness factor of it that they had even at that time. Now I would say that coolness factor has dissipated a lot, but at that time in 2015, it was certainly still there.
Yeah, this is maybe a little off color, but do you happen to know what Elon calls Apple engineers?
No.
Elon calls it the graveyard for Tesla engineers. Yeah, when I heard that, that was pretty funny. I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
he
pretty
wouldn't have
funny.
said that during Steve Jobs' era, but with Tim Cook, I think things have changed a little bit. Still a great company. I mean, I use everything Apple, as do you, but definitely different mindsets there. You could hear my fiance sneezing up there. Um, so let's take a step back. I mean, you, Greg, electrical engineer, patent attorney. What what about Tesla stands out to you from an investment perspective? Because you, hopefully, don't mind me saying this, very much like me, are essentially all in on Tesla outside of real estate. I mean, our portfolios pretty much look identical. We have Tesla shares, Tesla options, and we have real estate. So, what about Tesla? Whether it's from a IP attorney, electrical engineering lens. I mean, what about it from an engineering standpoint sticks out to you that makes you believe in the company so much to be all in on just one company, especially when you spent the better part of your career in the Bay Area, seeing all this talent, all this innovation, all these startups? Like, what is it that makes that the decision for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when Tesla came out with the Model Y, and I saw the how quickly the market was picking up the Model Y and how excited people were for it. And it seemed like everybody was saying like that's the best car of the year, and I think it was rated the best car of the year by a lot of publications. Um, it was really when that came out, and honestly talking to you, Nick, about Tesla and where they were going and how they're disrupting the industry and how much it felt like Apple in 2017. That convinced me to put the lion's share of my investment into Tesla. From an engineering perspective, I'm really excited about FSD, as I think everybody here is. I think it's kind of my opinion that once FSD comes out, any competitors that come into the space, won't stand a chance. Why would you buy a similarly priced car that doesn't have self-driving versus Tesla that does have self-driving? In my opinion, if competitors catch up, which I don't think they will in the near future, that's going to be the huge differentiator, and just it'll change the market. It'll change how we see transportation and parking and all that. So that from an engineering perspective, it's definitely FSD is what I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I see all. I mean, even this morning. Okay, so this morning, GM CEO Mary Barra just announced a partnership. I think is with Honda about making electric vehicles that are $30,000 or under in 2027.
I saw that.
2027, half a decade away. All right, it's all these people, and I was watching CNBC and Jim Cramer. I mean, you can't turn the TV on right now without anyone talking about Elon Musk acquisition of Twitter, right? That's all they're talking about now. He just got a board seat, so that's all anyone's talking about. But then Jim Cramer went on to say, we talk about Elon Musk as a visionary, as an innovator. Why don't we gonna start talking about Mary Barra like that with regards to this GM announcement? And it was just baffling to me because GM sold what 400 electric vehicles in this last quarter. Like that's not even in the realm of the same scope as what Tesla's doing. They're not even in the same universe. And it baffles me that people don't see this. Everybody thinks they can make all these announcements about all these things they're going to do, but the fundamental questions are where are you going to get the batteries? Work backwards. Who's going to make the batteries? Work even further back. Where are you going to get the minerals? Who's going to do the mining? And if you can't answer that question, then you build these vehicles. So all these announcements to me almost feel fraudulent. So you can't say this if there's no way to make these batteries in these vehicles without these minerals. And if you don't have these minerals and there's only so many, I mean, it's math, right? It's not that hard to figure out. And that's not even talking about the chip limitation. Chip limitation, much easier to figure out. But to build out these mines, to do all this mining, it's not in the same sphere of possibility. So to me, that's like one aspect, right? I mean, they can't even catch up if they can't do that part. But then with what you're saying with full self-driving, I like that. I always try to look. I mean, my channel is about investing. It's not just about Tesla. And I try to look and try to get outside of an echo chamber. And I try to see what companies can invest in that could have the best return. And also, you have to think about risk reward. And over, the companies I always find, and I always realize where the best risk reward are companies that are being built within Tesla, which is baffling. What you talk about energy, you talk about Tesla insurance, you talk about solar, you talk about what they're doing with batteries now, you talk about full self-driving, you talk about Optimus. I mean, it's just they're all embedded within there. I mean, do you see any other companies that interest you? I mean, besides Tesla, I mean, I know I'm speaking from a biased perspective, but is there anything else that you're like, oh, that's interesting?
I really don't. I think in my opinion, it's better for me to focus on one company and know that company as well as I can than to focus on five maybe innovative companies and try and figure out what the other, what five are doing. Um, and kind of on that note, it's funny to me when I talk to other people, even people, investors that have a Tesla, but they're not invested in Tesla or they're not that interested in, where Tesla's going as a company, not interested enough to really learn what's happening. They talk about, GM and these other companies catching up to Tesla and the risk factors associated with that. But it always seems like they're talking about those other companies being able to catch up to where Tesla is today. It's like, okay, so you think these other companies in 5 years are going to catch up to where Tesla is today? Where's Tesla going to be in 5 years? It's like they're not optimistic about Tesla, but they're optimistic about GM catching up to where Tesla is today. It doesn't make any sense to me.
That is such a good point. I mean, if you equate it to like a race, if Tesla is going 50 miles an hour and GM, everybody else is back at the starting line, but Tesla's going 50 miles an hour. In order to catch Tesla, you have to be going more than 50 miles an hour to stand a chance to catch them. And if you ask anybody what company is innovating the fastest and iterating the fastest, it's Tesla. So not only are these other companies not going to be going faster than Tesla, Tesla still has the top speed. So it's like, how do you pass them? How do you catch up to them? Like at that point, the only way would be if consumers choose another product, right? I mean, at the end of the day, consumers don't lie. I mean, you can be the best product in the world, but the consumers don't think that. then the consumers vote with their dollar. But I think it's very clear consumers are voting with their dollar and they are choosing the best product, which is Tesla. So that's a very valid point. I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been on here for a little over an hour, Greg. So I know you probably have other things to get to. I appreciate you hopping on today and giving us a little debrief on, I guess just a glimpse into how these patents work and what they could mean. And honestly, it opens your eyes to why you do need these patent attorneys, because there is a lot of gray and a lot of distinctions on what is, what isn't. You talk about contracts, you talk about different levels of the patent. So it definitely opened our eyes a lot. I definitely want to have you back on if you don't mind. I'd like to talk more about Tesla and maybe get a little more into the engineering side, maybe talk a little more about FSD in the future. But until then, I do appreciate you hopping on, and yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed Greg. Lots of knowledge there. Just a very smart individual. He's been in the space for a long time. And the best part is he's one of us, a big Tesla investor. So, that just makes what he has to say more relevant, and, it can relate more towards what we're all thinking about and trying to do. I'll have him on in the future. I want to talk more than just patents with him. I want to talk more about Tesla, about investing in the future, things of that nature. So you will see him again. Don't worry. So if you have any questions, patent related, electrical engineering related, feel free to ask, and I'll just compile them off to the side. And next time he comes on, we'll just dive in with him. All right, well, we're going to leave it there. Don't forget, Patreon links down below in the description. Same with the merch store. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell. I love you all. Peace.